Hello and welcome to Real Hi-Fi Help. Let's talk about features, the sound that you get from features. So everything that is a feature on a piece of gear, usually to some degree, big or small, affects the sound in a negative way. So on a lower level, it still kind of makes the sound better. Let me just explain. Features, what is it that I mean? Well, I'm talking about stuff like remote control, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, noise cancellation, DSP, all this stuff, EQ, room correction, all of this stuff that's written down here. What they do is they extend the circuitry from the original sound, and ideally we want all of this gone. And even when they're not in use, when you're not using the EQ, the watt meters, whatever, they still leave a mark on the sound. Even stuff like having a standby function on your piece of gear, even though it does do a positive of warming up the circuitry, it still ultimately affects the sound to a small degree. So just bear in mind that that doesn't directly translate to the fact that standby function makes something bad in sound. It's all relative, so just bear that in mind. And we have to consider that big problems do occur money-wise when you hear something that is very close to the truth, meaning that you need usually a lot of expensive components, good design, all of that stuff for it to sound good. Generally, there are exceptions to the rule. And that is also one of the reasons why we have all of this stuff going on in the equipment, because there's only a limited amount of money that a company can pump into equipment while it's still being a viable solution for them. So I mean, ideally, companies would put components in their gear that is $100,000-$300,000, and we would all have some of the best gear in the world. But it just doesn't work that way. You have to kind of compensate to some degree, do a bit of I wouldn't call it trickery, but yeah, compensate here and there, and do some compromises. And even though you do a lot of compromising, you can still get a relatively good sound. And yeah, so what happens is that when you're doing this, when you're adding circuitry, when you're adding features, it usually reduces harshness, adds a bit of bass, where it incorporates feelers, sensors, using AI intelligence, advanced mathematics, stuff like that, to, adjust the sound, compensate. So we have to realize that that's what's really happening. Many times when we like to listen to gear, it's not just because it's true, it's authentic, it's deep, and all of that. Many times what actually keeps us interested listening to something is the fact that you've kind of got a good thing, but it isn't entirely there. So there's a bit of mysticism, there's a bit of a veil covering the full truth, and trying to reveal that, get rid of that veil so you have access to everything is almost impossible. You can of course get closer and closer to that the more, usually the more that you pay, or the more time you use, or whatever reason. So it is a balancing act, balancing those two parts, so you get the ultimate sound. So I just think that we should realize that when we solve a problem at a lower level, there will always be a certain amount of uncertainty, doubt, hesitation that clouds our judgment and makes us either want to listen to it or not want to listen to music. And I feel that you as a person, me as a person, you as a person, another person, um, our our way of listening to music changes throughout the years. So you might buy a piece of gear now thinking that, wow, this is some of the best stuff you ever heard, and then owning it for a couple of months, you'll realize that, yeah, there's this and that part of the sound that you don't really like, and then you end up buying something else later on. It's just like that for everybody, you know. There are levels of sound. There are even, you know, levels of sound beyond what I have heard. Um, so we mustn't just say that compensation is bad and features are just like black and white bad. But I think that we should still acknowledge the fact that they do something, that they most of the time censor the sound, reduce reaction, and make it more difficult getting closer to the truth and fully releasing the sound and giving us all of the sound. So yeah, just recognize that there are a lot of levels within the compensation world and outside of it. And I think that also, all in all, I think that people, if they get to listen to most gear out there, they will in the end gravitate towards things that are more honest, more true, more direct. But it many times requires you, like I've said in many of my other videos, it requires you to pull yourself out of that more comfortable zone that you maybe are in, and listen to something that's way beyond, you know, price-wise, way beyond the point that you're on right now. So it's a journey. We're all kind of discovering the levels. So yeah, do whatever you can do to listen to all kinds of different gear. And yeah, that's my take on the matter. Like and subscribe if you can. Bye.